Wasabi guys, welcome back to another top 10 video. Again, if you appreciate these or any videos that I create, please do subscribe to the channel, it means a lot to me. I enjoy having you here along for the ride. This is the top 10 best reprints out of Double Masters 2022. Now, as has been the case for most of these master sets, there's usually one major chase card, and without that one major chase card, it does kind of make the entire set look lackluster. But thankfully for Double Masters 2022, they have one big one, and we're going to be talking about that for sure later on in the video. So starting it off with number 10, we have Mana Vault. A quality reprint, you know that it's going to hold its value, and it's not going to be overprinted like Sol Ring. Mana Vault is just a step above that. It's right next to other mana rocks like Mana Crypt, Grim Monolith, Basalt Monolith, and cards that can tap for multiple colorless mana. Probably the most underrated thing about it is its artwork. This was something that was a big deal for me when I first saw it back in Ultimate Masters. This is how you do it the right way. It's not obnoxious, it's not over the top, it's subtle, but it looks so cool. Only number 10 to me because it has been reprinted before. This was far from the number one priority when it came to reprints for Wizards, but it's a safe reprint that you know is going to hold value and it's going to add value to this set as a whole. This isn't a trendy card that's good in some decks, it's good in pretty much any deck you throw it into. Number 9, we have Food Chain, a card that has been reprinted before, but it is one of those highly requested older combo cards. If you are playing green, if you have any way of exiling your commander, replaying it over and over, Food Chain is that type of card for you. Food Chain can help you win. Their entire deck's built around being able to combo with this card. When I made my set review for Double Masters 2022, I forgot to mention how I felt that this set was designed as some kind of introductory product for new players. If you were to ignore the chase cards in the set, you look at a lot of the multicolored legendary commander options, a lot of it's what you would hand over to someone who wants to get their feet wet. I think Food Chain is exactly what you want to see in this kind of master set because it will justify the price point, and you know that the target is clearly for competitive players. If it's going to be your most expensive product, it should reflect that. So it's a good quality reprint for that reason, but again, it's not something that green players everywhere were demanding. There are some green cards that we're going to talk about here, such as number 8, Ren in 6. Not a commander staple, and this is a commander channel if you were wondering. A 2-mana planeswalker that can help you recycle your lands is very efficient. From the original Modern Horizons, this was clearly intended for that format. It was the most expensive card in that set, however, which justified it getting a reprint at some point. Now, it already had been reprinted, but not quite to this scale yet. Getting one in a major master set is a bit more significant. This is going to be a chase card for the set, no doubt. Lower on my list personally because it is limited in terms of how powerful it's going to be in specific formats. It's not bad in Commander, but it's not going to be as impactful, but still a card that you'll agree needed to be reprinted. And then number 7, we have Phyrexian Altar. I would say this is in the same category as Mana Vault. A good quality artifact, you know it's been reprinted before, but Phyrexian Altar, specifically in Commander, there's a very high demand for it. It's not just for combos, it's just a great practical sack outlet. You sacrifice a creature for 1 mana of any color. That's useful so long as you have a consistent supply of creatures. I would say the demand for this was even higher than Mana Vault, because there are some things you can accomplish without Mana Vault, but you can't really say the same thing for Phyrexian Altar. There were just way more decks that needed Phyrexian Altar, and if the deck did not have it, it would be significantly worse. After its first reprint in Ultimate Masters, still holding around $100 was insane, so it getting yet another reprint in Double Masters 2022 is a great thing. You know it's going to hold its value well. I don't just ask for reprints because I want cards to be cheaper. A lot of it too is accessibility. There's a lot more that goes into a card being hard to find than just simply it being priced out of your range. Supply is often an issue, and with Phyrexian Altar for a long time, this was a very difficult card to find. And then number 6, we have Alisar's Shepherd. Easily one of the best value cards for the mana. I mean, we talked about Mana Vault for 1 mana. This is another great value card for 1 mana. It can't be countered itself, and your green spells also can't be countered. This is another card, like with Phyrexian Altar, was around the $100 mark, and it held that mark for at least a year. A lot of that had to do with the fact that not only was it a mythic, but it had significant competitive potential. Now that we see it get down to the 30s and 20s, you're going to see a lot more people play with it, and I think it's going to go back up. It's just way too good to have its value absolutely destroyed because of one reprint, but it needed to happen. This is a highly requested card, highly requested reprint. Love to see it. And then number 5, now we get to talk about some of the big reprints, ones that people have been talking about for years even. we have Teferi's Protection. It has been reprinted, of course. Not every good reprint is a card that hasn't been reprinted before, like Alisara's Shepherd. Sometimes it's a card that is still expensive despite being reprinted several times. And with a couple reprints, Teferi's Protection was still one of the more expensive white cards that you could consider a staple. It's the only white card that does this. There are similar protection spells that you can play in white, but this is one that's guaranteed to protect your entire board and allow you to stall for time. Big reason why this was expensive for a long time was not just because it had some competitive potential, but because it was exclusive to one precon deck in 2017. As we've studied over the years, it's safe to come to the conclusion that anytime there's one really good card in a single precon deck and not multiple, that's going to add to the issue with supply, being able to provide these to your customers. It's another card that, even though it's getting a reprint in Double Masters 2022, it is going to recover. Good cards, just because they get reprinted, doesn't mean they're gonna tank. That might be a misconception that some people have, but give it a couple months and a lot of these are going to go right back up. Next up, we have another white card that everyone wanted a reprint of, Smothering Tithe. White's Ristic Study, and it basically is. You don't even have to synergize with it. It's that good enchantment that you throw into just about every white deck if you feel like getting your own treasure token advantage. It had not been reprinted before. This is the first time. You know, because of the reprint, that it is going to make it more likely that people play it in their decks. Same thing as I said before, you're going to see some discounts here for the summer. Cards like Smothering Tithe and Teferi's Protection, if you ever wanted to make a white deck, I think now would be the perfect time. There's not really too much else for me to say about it. I think it has some competitive potential. I've seen it in plenty of deck lists, but this is one of those cards that you're going to see played casually. It's not an explosive card by any means, but just like with Ristic Study, it slowly adds up and it becomes a bigger problem as the game continues. And then number 3, we have Force of Negation. Wonderful reprint here, even though blue, I think, for the most part in the set, got the short end of the stick. You didn't really have too many chase cards. You got a reprint of Mana Drain, Consecrated Sphinx. Force of Negation is the big one though, because it has been the hardest to find between the three. If you like Force of Will, well, this is Force of Will if Force of Will were a negate instead of a counterspell. For that reason, it's way more competitive and it does see commander play. So multiple formats using this card made it highly desirable, and it's been around a $50 card ever since. Counterspells are never going out of style, they're still going to be here. Force of Will still being a good card in 2022 is proof enough of that. Essentially getting another one of those was awesome. In number 2, we have probably one of the best commander cards ever made, all the way back in Commander 2019, Dockside Extortionist. Similar issue with Teferi's Protection, but up to this point it had not been reprinted. Exclusively being in one precon deck is something that I don't think Wizards of the Coast can really afford to do anymore. It just makes the entire set so off-balanced. If this were included in the other red decks that year, I think it would be a lot lower. But in that year, you got already one of the best red commander cards ever made. 2-mana creature that can reward you with a ton of treasure tokens on ETB. That is insanely abusable, high combo potential, and something that only kept growing because of the popularity of the commander option Prosper Tomebound. I know this list for people it's going to be subjective depending on what you valued the most, but I commit to the top 5 here. I think these are cards that people have been asking for, they're going to hold their value, and they're going to help give this master set its own identity. Before we go on to number 1, let's talk about real quickly some honorable mentions. We have Bitter Blossom and Damnation. I think both of these are quality reprints in black, but these have been reprinted in other master sets. They really just serve the purpose of adding value to the set overall. Monastery Mentor is a pretty good reprint, although not necessarily something that you were desperately looking to play in Commander, so the upside here is maybe appealing to some Pioneer players, maybe some Modern players. Concordant Crossroads is a fantastic reprint. For a long time this was such a difficult card to find, but since it's been reprinted more recently, it is starting to lose its value. People are not as desperately looking to play with it. And we of course have the 3 big Eldrazi from Rise of the Eldrazi. I like these, but as I said in my set review, it would have been a lot cooler if they reprinted the newer Eldrazi Big 3. Same as a lot of other reprints, these are just here to add more value per pack, so you're getting your money's worth. So number 1, it's to no one's surprise, this is the ultimate chase card in the whole set, Imperial Seal. This reprint is going to make it a lot easier for those of you who wanted to play more competitively, because up to this point, I think even the Judge promo for this was at least $600. And the Portal 3 Kingdoms is a collector's item. Because of its premium, it's going to be way too expensive for the average person who's just looking to play a more competitive deck. I cautioned people against wanting to jump on the Imperial Seal bandwagon, and I think a direct comparison here could be Imperial Recruiter. This is a card that everybody thought was going to be the ultimate chase card, going back to Masters 25. And while it did hold its value for some time, it's nowhere near the value of the original from Portal 3 Kingdoms. You have to really value this card in terms of what it's capable of. And for that, it's a cheap tutor that's as good as any other tutor if all you care about is getting to your combo pieces, getting to your win cons. If we were to compare it to Vampiric Tutor or Demonic Tutor, cards that see way more play, it does fall a bit short. But in Commander, consistency is king. And Imperial Seal is going to add consistency to a ton of decks, no doubt. But as I mentioned in my set review, there is going to be a honeymoon phase. This will be the chase card of all chase cards. You're going to have different artwork variants, you're going to have different border variants. Just temper your expectations going forward, because while I think every other card on the list is going to recover, Imperial Seal has a lot further to drop. But if we were talking about the one card that everyone was begging for a reprint, it was Imperial Seal, and for that, it has to be number one. I've even said it before, it needed to be reprinted, but time will tell and we'll have to pay attention to the market. So, hope you enjoyed the video. These are the top 10 best reprints out of Double Masters 2022. I am Commander Void. See you all next time.